this one's gonna get a little gross. It's the Cipher by Kathy Koja? Kath? It's either Kath or Kathy, maybe. This one is always recommended to me because I tend to like the darker, more sort of philosophical horror a lot of the times. And this was definitely that. The writing in this book was really excellent. She's truly a wordsmith. Like, just the way she puts sentences on the paper was really beautiful. I wish I could write that way. The problem was I sort of didn't get much of the plot or the imagination that I hoped would be there. So you follow a couple of young adults, and they find a sort of a black hole on the floor in their basement of a apartment complex. The setting is like it gave me like 90s gross, grimy, almost like a Clive Barker movie, like Hellraiser in New York kind of vibe. They find this black hole, and the way it's described is really beautiful, you know, the void of it. It's just the plot didn't really go as far as I thought it would. It was more of like a thought experiment kind of, um, and kind of left up to your own imagination, which can be good sometimes, but the writing was so beautiful. I was hoping to get a little more. So this whole, it's like it kind of like calls to them in a way. It's they they start to experiment and like put insects near the hole or in the hole. Um, it goes to some really gross sort of body horror places. So somewhere toward the beginning of the book, they put a video camera down the hole. Now, I don't want to spoil anything. We can't really spoil much because there's not really a lot of plot that happens in the book. It's more about the writing, and sort of the philosophical musings that happen. They put this video down there and it just shows like black darkness. And when they watch the tape, the guy, his name's Nicholas, he sees the same thing every time, like a videotape. They watch it over and over and over, and people become obsessed with it. They sort of like tell some of their friends about it, kind of reluctantly. People come watch it and like zombify just watching this videotape and be in like a trance watching it. So Nicholas, he mentions the tape. He doesn't want to watch it anymore. And the girl that he's made this tape with, she's like, "Well, you have to be there because it only works when you're there." And I'm like, "What? It only works when you're there." She said, "You say you see the same thing every time, but for all of us, when we watch the tape, we see something different." And that blew my mind. I loved that. It was probably like, 15% through the book here when that happens. And man, I was in. I'm like, "What? It only works when he's there." And then they're like, "Yeah, the black hole, they call it the fun hole." It's so gross. It only works when you're around, Nicholas. Very intriguing. So I was hoping it would go to some really creative places. Yeah, read it for yourself and see. I definitely would recommend it. I give it like 3 stars. It would be a 4 if, the plot was a little more like interesting or satisfying. All right, so after the Cipher, I did the Necromancer's House by Christopher Buehlman. So I read Between Two Fires. It's been a couple years, and it became one of my favorite books I've ever read. Honestly, it's one of my top 10 favorite books of all time. I'm a sucker for religious horror, and that book is like the perfect example of that. The Necromancer's House. So Buellman's got a lot of books. I have a couple more up here, I believe. I did the Necromancer's House. It was very creative in a different way than the Cipher is. The Cipher was like just sort of dreamlike and gross and grimy. The Necromancer's house is more like traditional creative horror. You've got necromancy, of course. You've got shape shifting and possession and witches, and you've got like this sentient. I don't want to say too much. It gave me almost like Evil Dead vibes, which was really fun. So the book was really, really fun to read. Unlike the Cipher was not fun to read at all. It was like disgusting and very depressing. And the relationships there were awful, and the characters were awful, horrible, horrible people. The Necromancer's house was more, actually fun to read. So, two very different style books. I actually gave them both, I think, 3 stars. So nothing too crazy. I'm, I've got some other interests right now that have really pulled me in a different direction. So probably back away from the horror novels for the rest of the year. And in my next video, we'll talk more about what has really sucked me in lately. So thanks for watching, y'all. See ya.